Multiple protests over COVID-19 mandate. 3 men arrested for forging COVID-19 vaccination cards. Police on the hunt for an arsonist who torched 2 vehicles in Berbice. In the region, Brazil's top court expected to rule on indigenous tribe land rights. And internationally, Taliban issues new warning against extending evacuation deadline. Greetings and welcome to another edition of Channel 2 Headline News Update. I am Bibi Bacchus. Thank you for joining us. Protesters today took to the Square of the Revolution, demanding the right to choose whether they should or should not be vaccinated. Here's more. Today, scores of persons took to the Square of the Revolution in protest of the government's new gazetted order, which requires that all healthcare workers, teachers, and public transportation operators be vaccinated or produce a weekly PCR test. Some of the protesters are calling for the removal of the Minister of Health, Dr. Frank Anthony.
Students must be vaccinated before they return to school. That's a mandate. Incompetent Frank Anthony represents that Guyanese citizens must be vaccinated before they get any services. That's a mandate. So there we are out here protesting mandates. And so when we say who must go, incompetent Frank. Who must go?
Opposition Member of Parliament Natasha Singh said while she is not against vaccines, she believes that the government is not doing enough to educate the public about the efficacy of the COVID-19 vaccination.
From the beginning, I have said that the Ministry of Health has no education plan for the vaccination program. If from the beginning, and I'm not going to tell you the problem without telling you what the solution in my mind should have been or should continue to be, you're going to roll out something as major as an emergency vaccine, then you have to educate the people. In my opinion, if there was a mass education program, and please don't tell the viewers that the mass education program is taking place on NCN, because I can tell you at some point only 33 people just watch NCN. So that's not the 800,000 people living in Guyana will benefit from that. And so your vaccination education program has to be for all. I believe if we had done that from the beginning, then we would not have been in this problem. Where we are now is where they are making vaccination mandatory and you can say to all of Guyana. Now, how is that fair? It is my right to decide what I do with my body. And that's not fair. But let me say to the people that I have, as a leader, I have taken the vaccine. I have had my own setbacks in taking the vaccine. But I have doctors who can advise me. What about the people way down in the back dam, in the riverine area, who cannot have such facility? What happens to them? And so I am saying that a comprehensive rollout of an education program where every single person, every adult in this country understands what their position is in relation to the vaccine, then you'll have better results.
While emphasizing that the message should be modified to address various groups of individuals using various platforms, MP Singh also gives some recommendations and methodologies that the government should use to further educate citizens about the vaccination.
I have just zeroed in on the government saying that their education program is widely broadcast on NCN. That is incorrect to say. Only a small number of persons, but you have to give other people, other news outlet that carries a large viewership. All the other news outlet, your news outlet, give them an opportunity. Put the medical personnel there. There are a young population that we need to convince to take the vaccine. Young people gravitate towards creative arts. Find the artists, do a jingle, do a poem, something that makes them understand in their language. So you speak to them in a way that they understand in the creative arts. We have started to do that when COVID came in March 2020. What is wrong with that methodology? The objective is to meet the people wherever they are, whoever they are, meet them, give them the information, give them authentic information so that they make a decision for themselves.
Citizens are demanding the right to choose whether they should or should not take the vaccine. Persons present at the protest stated that they are protesting with the hope that the government of Guyana would recognize that they should not be compelled to make decisions about what goes into their bodies without being properly educated and having a choice. Headline News also caught up with actress-comedian Odessa Primus at the protest. She had this to say.
For me specifically, I believe that people should be given a choice, that we should find creative means of ensuring that people are educated, because of course as a country, people are at different educational levels, and so you have to find messages that could meet everybody at every different level, which is something that the government has not done thus far. And that for me is a problem, because you cannot say that we give them information and they're still doing their own thing. You give information to whom? How? Via what means? And those are important things that I believe the government ought to consider when making their decisions to inform or educate the public on the vaccine. More importantly, you have to be accepting of the fact that when you put information out there, the people are now educated, are now informed, and they're able to make a decision from an informed position. And you have to respect that as well, because it is not just saying, you give us the information and then we can go and take the vaccine. That's not what we're saying. We're saying give us the information and we still have the choice to determine whether or not we take the vaccine.
She reiterated that the method the government is using to inform the citizens about the usefulness and safety of the vaccines is only meeting one group of people.
People of a certain educational standing generally speak from a certain status, and that information could only reach a certain group of people. That's like me going to somebody who speaks Portuguese only and speaking quite beautifully in English language. It don't matter how well I speak, it don't matter how eloquently it's put together. At the end of the day, the person I'm speaking to will not be able to understand me. So it's about tailoring the message. So the one message, you can have it tailored to suit different sets of people.
Primus also had some suggestions of her own as to how the government can get the message across to its citizens.
In this country, we have got a number of artists, and every artist comes with his or her own following as well. And I believe that if we were to take that route where we would have skits, you have organizations such as Marundoy. I myself am an actress comedian. You have other singers. You have like the Kwesi Ace, you have the Bunty Singh, you have the Stephen Ramphal, and all these people who have a presence on social media and otherwise. And I believe that these people can be utilized to come up with their creative ways, because of course this is not something that the government need to come up with the thing and give it to these artists. Pay them the money, let them come up with however they believe people could be reached, and reach the people. This is COVID is not a joke. I don't find it as a joke. I don't think it's something that is not serious. But at the end of the day, you have to be creative enough. It's not about being a bully. You cannot sit down and tell people they have to nothing. Just telling people they have to is going to, a lot of people are going to put up a resistance.
President Linden also took to the streets today in a massive protest against the government's new gazetted order, or as the protesters term, mandatory vaccination. 3 men are in custody, charged with forging several COVID-19 vaccination cards as well as other official documents. Esther Sobers has that story.
3 men are now in police custody after being arrested on Tuesday in connection with the alleged theft of several blank COVID-19 vaccination books, medical equipment, and other items from the Ministry of Health. According to the Guyana Police Force, the men ages 24, 37, and 42 were detained after 2 of them went to a nurse at the Reading Hoop Health Center and requested her to stamp 2 COVID-19 vaccination booklets. The nurse checked the books and observed that they were all blank. The men disclosed to the nurse that a third one was waiting to take them to the Diamond Hospital. Realizing that the suspects were not supposed to have the cards, she immediately brought the issue to the attention of her supervisor, who subsequently reported the matter to the Reading Hoop Police Station. The men were arrested. A search was conducted on their car. Investigators said they seized a total of 4 blank blue COVID-19 vaccination books, 1 stethoscope, 17 stamped sick leave forms, 1 sugar testing kit, and 1 pressure testing kit. The police said the sick leave forms were all stamped with the West Demerara Regional Hospital stamp, and 1 blue COVID-19 book, which was stamped, bears the name and address of a person. Police said they went to the home of the third suspect and conducted a further search, which unearthed 1 machine for testing pressure and 1 for sugar testing in his bedroom. The men were questioned about the items, and he stated that he bought them in Georgetown, but he could not produce any receipt for them. Searches were done at the other 2 suspects' homes, but nothing of evidential value was found. The 3 suspects were escorted back to the Freedom Hoop police station and placed into custody, assisting with investigation. In today's COVID-19 update, Minister of Health Dr. Frank Anthony spoke about the repercussions of stealing and forging vaccination booklets.
We have had a number of cases that have been reported to us, and we have called in the police to investigate those cases. In some case, or in some of the incidents, the police have made a determination, so very shortly, you might see those persons appearing in court. We are very serious about this because if somebody is unvaccinated and they pay for a card, then that can lead to several problems, because if they get sick and they present that card, then there's no way of us, we'll have to go back and check to see whether or not they were actually vaccinated.
For Channel 2 Headline News, Esther Sobers.
Thanks, Esther. Don't go away after the break. Police on hunt for an arsonist and security guard shot man during an argument over face mask.
At 4 p.m., the doors for Flavors Hotel, Restaurant and Bar will be opening. We are just opening our doors for the public. Being a new restaurant, new establishment, we want to get kitchens in place, the bar in place, the employees, the staff, the service, so that by the 28th, the grand opening, all systems are in place. There are no falters. Our bar is far beyond anywhere else. We've got lots of specialty drinks that I'm sure fans can appreciate. Our food is unsurpassed. We have a specialty menu with a certain type of steak, certain type of fish. It's unsurpassed. We bring professionalism to Guyana. You get the best entertainment 7 days a week. We have entertainment. I'm a stickler for jazz, Sunday jazz. I'm pushing jazz. I've got a couple of jazz bands that will be here every Sunday at 6. So please come by. Very creative person, creative in the kitchen. I'm actually a contractor that builds restaurants and bars. So I've kind of perfected the art in Atlanta and New York. And I decided to bring a bit of America to Guyana.
#1 hangout spot, Flavors Hotel Restaurant Bar.
when you need money and you gotta get it fast. Creative Jewelry and Pawn Shop is the place for that confidential transaction in a quiet and secure location. You'll get the highest value per pennyweight for your gold and also enjoy the lowest interest rates and longest payback period too. Yes, for that instant transaction to solve a pressing financial problem. That Creative Jewelry and Pawn Shop, 46 Boyle Place, that's between the Ministry of Housing on Brickdam and White Castle Fish Shop. Be your first and only choice. Creative Jewelry and Pawn Shop, safe and sound, solid and secure, always there for you. Telephone 231-7878 and 223-8955.
I want to go to school so that someday I can do something to make a difference.
I'm the first in my family to attend the university, and I won't be the last.
I want my daughter to be able to hold her head up high in this world as a proud, educated woman.
Education has changed my life by giving me the opportunity to make it better.
Welcome back. Police are in the hunt for an arsonist in the BERBICE area who was caught on CCTV setting 2 vehicles on fire. More from Mr. Sobers.
A businessman was left counting his losses after an arsonist searched 3 of his vehicles last evening. 46-year-old businessman Dougnod Moses, also known as Chonik of East Kanji Berbice, said the incident occurred after 8 p.m. The ordeal was caught on CCTV footage and showed one unidentifiable male walking out of a street situated west of the premises. He threw a substance on the vehicles and then lit them. The police disclosed that the victim parked his minibus and motorcar on the eastern side of his canter on the northern side of his premises. Reported that at about 8 p.m. he secured his business place and proceeded to the upper flat of his building with his family when he observed one of his cameras that his motor vehicles was on fire. As a result, he armed himself with his licensed firearms and ventured to the front of his yard, where he discharged 4 rounds from his shotgun and 4 from his .32 pistol. The New Amsterdam fire station was contacted and responded. However, the blaze was already extinguished. Investigation is in progress. For Channel 2 Headline News, Esther Sobers.
Thanks, Esther. Police are looking into the shooting of a 57-year-old man on Tuesday afternoon after he refused to follow the COVID-19 protocols. According to a police report, Mohammed Fazil, also known as Robbie of Parika East Bank Essequibo, was shot by a security officer at the Golden World Chinese supermarket on the East Bank of Essequibo during a conflict over his lack of a face mask before entering the supermarket. Fazil left the premises after being denied access, only to return with a cutlass, brandishing the weapon in front of the security guard. According to the security, when he saw the victim with the cutlass, he drew his company-issued handgun from his waist and fired 1 shot into one of the victim's legs. Fazil was transported to the Lenora Cottage Hospital and treated by an on-duty doctor before being transferred to the West Demerara Regional Hospital. He is said to be in a stable condition. Don't go away after the break. Brazil's top court expected to rule on indigenous tribal land rights, and Asia-Pacific countries face record COVID cases. But before that, here's the bridge retraction schedule.
What's the problem, Granny? I want money for borrow for those surgery. I was dancing and I fall and fracture my hip.
If you need some quick money, you should check Lender's Jewelry and Pawn Shop.
Lender's Jewelry and Pawn Shop, Lot 238 South Road Border, Georgetown. Get jewelry made to order in just 72 hours. We also accept vehicles. Lender's, best rates, longest payback period.
Boys, I get through. Plus, I could dance again.
Lender's Jewelry and Pawn Shop.
Welcome to Kissoon's Furniture. Find everything you need for your home and more under one roof in our newly decorated showroom. Our our locally crafted furniture has been perfected over the last 60 years. From our hands to your home, we also bring to you our newly introduced lines of imported furniture and Sleep Center, where you can find a wide range of beds and mattresses. Kissoon's Furniture, furnishing homes for over 60 years.
For decades, milk has remained the same. Until now. Introducing the Great Dairy Full Cream Milk from Alabama Trading. Enriched with vitamins A to D and calcium to promote healthy teeth, strong bones, and vitality. Great Dairy Milk is delicious and fortified to encourage healthy cell growth within the body. No wonder it's the #1 brand of milk produced in Ireland. Now available nationwide in 400-gram packages at leading supermarkets and wholesale vendors. Distributed by Alabama Trading.
Survival Shopping Complex brings to you its delivery service, Shop through WhatsApp. This process is simple. All you need to do is call or message your grocery list to 613-9683 and we will select your items for you and have them delivered directly to you, even out of town. This is convenient because we can stay on the phone with you as we select your favorite brands. We're happy to do your shopping for you. Contact us on WhatsApp today and shop Price Smart at Survival Shopping Complex.
Welcome back. Now we take a look at news in the region and around the world. Brazil's Supreme Court is expected to deliver a landmark ruling on tribal lands. The ruling could reopen past cases that have allowed commercial farming and mining in the Amazon rainforest and eventually lead to the return of land to indigenous people. Al Jazeera's Monica Yannicke reports.
They've come from all over the country, wearing the beads and feathers of 170 different indigenous groups, more than half of those in Brazil, chanting and praying, each in their own language, in the hope the Supreme Court will hear their voices. It's the largest indigenous gathering in the capital, Brasilia, since 1988. That's when the country's democratic constitution was approved, giving native Brazilians the right to reclaim ancestral lands. But they're back again, fearing those rights will be curtailed. This week, the Supreme Court is expected to make its ruling.
It's a land dispute between the Xochitl people who reclaimed their territories in the southern state of Santa Catarina and big landowners who say they have no rights because they weren't occupying those lands in 1988 when the Constitution was approved. It'll set a jurisprudence for hundreds of their pending cases.
The Xochitl chieftain says setting a time limit is unconstitutional and unfair.
We weren't living in our lands in 1988 because had we stayed there, we'd have been exterminated. We've been hunted down by the landowners. They put a price on us. They paid people to kill us and asked them to bring our ears as proof.
Brazil's indigenous groups have forever been at risk from land grabs, illegal mining and logging. And they say attacks have increased since Jair Bolsonaro became president, with him promising to stop creating reservations and further exploit the Amazon rainforest. They're hoping the Supreme Court ruling will protect them.
It's a race against time. Meanwhile, in Congress, the powerful farm lobby and President Jair Bolsonaro himself are pushing a bill that will allow commercial agriculture and mining in protected indigenous lands. Monica Yannicke, Al Jazeera, Brasilia.
Internationally, the Taliban says it will not extend the August 31st deadline for foreign forces to evacuate American citizens and Afghans the U.S. has worked with from Kabul airport. But Western countries warn the mission cannot be accomplished by the date given. Al Jazeera's Charles Startford reports.
The US President says the August the 31st deadline still stands.
We are currently on a pace to finish by August the 31st. The sooner we can finish, the better. Each day of operations brings added risk to our troops. But the completion by August 31st depends upon the Taliban continuing to cooperate and allow access to the airport for those who we're transporting out and no disruptions to our operations.
Military aircraft continue to take off from Kabul airport. It's a 24-hour operation. On board, some of the tens of thousands of people who have been evacuated since the Taliban seized power on August the 15th. But it's estimated tens of thousands more are desperate to leave. Despite pressure from governments around the world and before the US president made his statement, the Taliban reiterated there would be no extension of the August the 31st deadline for the remaining NATO soldiers in Afghanistan to get out.
We will not allow an extension beyond August 31st, so the US should remove and evacuate all personnel by the set deadline.
Mujahid said the Taliban is stopping Afghans from going to the airport.
The Islamic Emirate is trying to encourage people to go home, but the Americans are inviting people to go to the airport. Their adverse policy of continuing to board people on planes. The airport access route has been closed to avoid stampedes.
The UN's top human rights official told an emergency session of the UN Human Rights Council she has received credible reports of the Taliban committing serious violations, including summary executions of civilians and restrictions on women.
A fundamental red line will be the Taliban's treatment of women and girls, and respect for their rights to liberty, freedom of movement, education, self-expression and employment, guided by international human rights norms. In particular, ensuring access to quality secondary education for girls will be an essential indicator of commitment to human rights.
The Taliban spokesman said women should, for the time being, stay at home because Taliban fighters were not yet trained on how to behave.
We need to have a procedure and a plan in place. Security force is not operational. They are not trained to deal with women. That's why we're stopping women from going to work. We ask women to stay home and their salaries will be resuming. Come back to work when we have a system in place.
With no extension of the August the 31st deadline, there are mounting concerns for tens of thousands of Afghans that want to leave this country. The Taliban says they have nothing to fear and that there will be no reprisals against people who have worked with NATO, foreign organisations or the media in the past. But trusting the Taliban on the basis of their words alone is something that many Afghans and the international community find very difficult to do. Charles Strafford, Al Jazeera, Kabul.
And finally, Australia's state of New South Wales has set a new high for daily COVID-19 cases, while Thailand's death toll from the virus crossed 10,000, with most deaths coming in the last 4 months. Al Jazeera's Scott Hillier has more in this report.
More than half of Australia's 25 million people are in lockdown. Hospitals in its largest city, Sydney, are under severe pressure as its home state of New South Wales sets a new daily COVID-19 infection record of 919. This after 2 months of lockdowns. Health officials emphasizing that the way to counter the surge is through vaccinations.
The solution is in our hands, and I urge everyone in those local government areas who have access to that vaccine to fill those appointment vacancies and get a vaccine. If we get those high levels, the modelling shows we will change, they are effective, and we will see a decline in cases.
Neighbouring state Queensland has paused arrivals from declared hotspots, including New South Wales. Officials say quarantine hotels are full. Across the Tasman, New Zealand has reported the highest number of cases in its Delta outbreak. Most cases are in Auckland, but the entire country is in lockdown. It's stepping up what's been criticised as a slow vaccination rollout.
Nobody wants to be in lockdown, and the best way that we can return to enjoying the freedoms that we have had for much of the last year is to get very high levels of vaccination.
The hospitals in Japan are also struggling with a surge of new infections brought on by the highly transmissible Delta variant. 90% of Tokyo's critical care beds are occupied. The country has expanded its state of emergency to 8 more prefectures, making it 21 in total. That'll cover nearly half of all Japan's prefectures. And despite restricting movement in Vietnam's largest city, Ho Chi Minh, in July, COVID-19 infections have continued to climb. Soldiers have been deployed to enforce harsher curbs implemented this week. Ho Chi Minh has accounted for half of Vietnam's total COVID-19 cases and about 80% of the deaths. On her visit to Hanoi on Wednesday, U.S. Vice President Kamala Harris announced the United States will be donating 1 million doses of the Pfizer vaccine. Only 1.8% of people in Vietnam are fully vaccinated. In Taiwan this week, President Tsai Ing-wen launched the rollout of a domestically developed COVID-19 vaccine. She received her first dose of the Metadin jab that was given emergency approval by regulators last month. It uses a piece of COVID-19 to trigger the body into mounting an immune response. The move prompted strong opposition within the medical and scientific community because large-scale and long-term studies were bypassed. For the first time since May, no new domestic cases were reported in Taiwan on Wednesday. 40% of the island's population has received at least one dose of a COVID-19 vaccine. Scott Heidler, Al Jazeera, Bangkok.
And that is it for today's regional and international news. Here now is your 3-day weather forecast. That is all for this edition of Channel 2 Headline News Update. Tune in on Thursday at 7 p.m. for another episode. Be sure to subscribe, like, and follow us on Facebook and YouTube. Until then, stay safe and take care.